I haven't seen you for 6 months.
I'll be down there now.
Why did they walk away when the world wanted more, and what became of them after fame stopped calling? Hollywood was built to keep stars shining forever, yet some of its most famous faces vanished at the height of their power. No farewell tours, no final bows, just silence. Behind their sudden disappearances lie personal tragedies, shocking choices, and lives radically changed away from the spotlight. Stay with us as we uncover the actors you will never see again. Rick Moranis. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Rick Moranis was everywhere. With his soft-spoken delivery and offbeat charm, he stood out in hits like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Spaceballs. His comedy was never loud or aggressive. It felt warm, awkward, and quietly intelligent, the kind that made audiences feel comfortable rather than overwhelmed. Hollywood embraced him, and he rose from quirky, supporting roles to genuine leading man status with ease. Then life changed abruptly. After the sudden loss of his wife, Moranis stepped away from acting to raise his 2 children as a single father. What was meant to be a short break in 1997 slowly became an open-ended absence. Film sets, long shoots, and constant travel no longer mattered. As time passed, he realized he did not miss the chaos of the movie industry at all. Being present for his children mattered more than any role he could be offered. Despite years away from the spotlight, Moranis has never officially retired. He simply became selective, choosing privacy and stability over fame. Even turning down the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot was not about rejection or bitterness, but about peace with the life he had deliberately built away from Hollywood. Do you miss seeing Rick Moranis on the big screen? Comment 1 if you hope he returns, or 0 if you respect his choice to stay away. Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day. Lewis was never an ordinary star. He treated acting not as a career but as a calling, choosing roles with extreme care and dedicating himself to total transformation. Each performance demanded full immersion, whether he was portraying Abraham Lincoln or the deeply tormented figures that defined his career. His intensity and discipline set him apart in an industry driven by speed and visibility. That dedication reached its peak with Lincoln in 2012. His quiet, powerful portrayal earned him his 3rd Academy Award for Best Actor, making him the first performer in history to achieve that distinction. At the height of success, with global recognition and nothing left to prove, Day-Lewis made an almost unthinkable choice. He stepped away. Following his Oscar triumph, he retreated to a secluded life in Ireland, far from premieres, interviews, and Hollywood expectations. For years, he remained silent, allowing time and distance to separate him from the industry that had once defined him. When he returned briefly in 2017 for Phantom Thread, many believed it marked the beginning of a new chapter. Instead, it became a farewell. Before the film's release, his publicist announced his official retirement. There was no scandal and no explanation, only a final, deliberate exit. In a world obsessed with attention and constant relevance, Daniel Day-Lewis chose peace over applause, leaving behind a legacy built on depth, restraint, and rare artistic integrity. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid once stood at the edge of greatness in Hollywood. Known for his sharp comedic timing and unpredictable presence, he also proved his dramatic power early on. His performance in The Last Detail 1973 earned him nominations for the Academy Award, BAFTA, and Golden Globe, marking him as an actor with serious depth. Roles in films like Midnight Express further reinforced the sense that Quaid had a long-respected career ahead of him, one balanced between humor and raw intensity. But unlike many careers that fade quietly, Quaid's unraveling was loud and unsettling. Despite fame and financial success, his life took a bizarre turn as he and his wife became entangled in criminal cases involving fraud and illegally occupying a property they once owned. Time and again, Quaid posted bail only to flee. The situation escalated until the couple escaped to Canada, where they were eventually detained. What once felt like eccentric behavior hardened into a reputation Hollywood could no longer overlook. Since then, doors that were once wide open have remained firmly shut. Studios grew cautious, roles disappeared, and Randy Quaid slowly vanished from the industry that once celebrated him. His story isn't just about scandal, it's about how quickly talent can be eclipsed when trust is lost. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox built a career defined by charm, energy, and effortless likability. From his early film roles in the 1980s to later television appearances, he carried a sense of optimism that made audiences root for him. Films like Doc Hollywood showed his range beyond comedy, while his television work proved he could still command attention years after his initial rise to fame. But time brought challenges that no script could soften. As the years passed, Fox began struggling with moments of uncertainty on set, especially when it came to remembering lines. In 2020, while watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a scene in which Leonardo DiCaprio's character freezes and forgets his dialogue struck painfully close to home. It mirrored experiences Fox himself had recently faced while filming The Good Fight. That realization became a turning point. Rather than pushing himself further, Fox made the quiet decision to step away from acting for good. It was not a dramatic exit, but a deeply personal one rooted in honesty and self-awareness. His choice marked the end of an era, leaving behind a legacy built not just on success, but on dignity. Do you think Michael J. Fox made the right decision by stepping away before the struggle became public, or should he have kept acting despite the challenges? Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Renee Zellweger. After winning an Academy Award for Cold Mountain, Renee Zellweger seemed untouchable. Hollywood embraced her as both a critical darling and a box office force. She moved effortlessly between intimate dramas and mainstream hits, sharing the screen with Meryl Streep in One True Thing, Jim Carrey in Me, Myself, and Irene, and earning Oscar nominations for Jerry Maguire and later Chicago. Fame followed her everywhere, and for a time it looked like her career would only continue to rise. But success came with a cost. As the attention grew louder, Zellweger began to feel disconnected from the world around her. She later explained that she longed for anonymity, for simple conversations where she could be seen as a person rather than an image that entered the room before she did. Instead of chasing momentum, she made the rare decision to step away. She chose quieter indie projects, then gradually disappeared from the spotlight altogether, prioritizing her inner life over constant visibility. Her absence confused fans and fueled endless speculation, but for Zellweger, it was an act of preservation. Walking away allowed her to reclaim a sense of normalcy that fame had slowly eroded. When she eventually returned, it was on her own terms, shaped by distance, reflection, and emotional clarity. Do you think Renee Zellweger was right to step away at the height of her fame, or should she have stayed in the spotlight for more real Hollywood stories like this? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Jack Gleason. For many viewers, Jack Gleason will forever be associated with Joffrey Baratheon, one of the most despised characters in television history. His performance on Game of Thrones was so disturbingly effective that it erased the boundary between fiction and reality. Audiences did not just dislike Joffrey, they reacted to him with genuine anger, proof of how completely Gleason embodied the role. Long before he ever stepped into Westeros, however, Gleason had been acting since the age of 8, appearing in films like Reign of Fire and Batman Begins, slowly and quietly building his craft without the noise of stardom. When Game of Thrones turned him into a global figure, his future in Hollywood seemed guaranteed. Yet at the height of his fame, Gleason made a decision that stunned fans and industry insiders alike. In 2012, he announced that he would step away from acting altogether. There was no scandal, no burnout, and no professional failure behind the choice. Instead, Gleason felt that acting as a full-time pursuit no longer brought him fulfillment. He returned to Ireland and chose a different path, one centered on philosophy, academic study, and personal growth. Away from the spotlight, Gleason found meaning in theater work and intellectual exploration, engaging with art on a smaller, more personal scale. His disappearance left a noticeable absence not because of unfinished potential, but because he willingly walked away from a career many would have fought to keep. His story remains a rare reminder that success does not always mean staying, and sometimes the boldest move is choosing peace over applause. Karen Parsons. Karen Parsons became a defining face of 1990s television as Hilary Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Stylish, sharp-tongued, and unforgettable, her performance helped shape the cultural impact of the show and secured her place in TV history. When the series ended, it seemed natural to expect a long run in Hollywood built on recognition and momentum. But the follow-up never fully arrived. A few television projects came and went, including short-lived series and supporting film roles, yet none matched the visibility of her breakout success. Instead of chasing relevance, Parsons made a quieter decision. She stepped away from acting in the early 2000s, choosing a path that did not rely on auditions or industry approval. Away from the screen, Parsons reinvented herself as a writer and historian. She founded Sweet Blackberry, a nonprofit dedicated to uncovering and sharing overlooked stories of African American achievement. While her face faded from television, her voice found a new purpose, one rooted in education, legacy, and impact beyond entertainment. Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron entered the entertainment industry at a remarkably young age and rose to fame faster than most child actors ever do. His role as Mike Seaver on Growing Pains ran for 7 highly successful seasons, turning him into a household name and one of the most recognizable teen idols of the 1980s. Week after week, audiences watched him grow up on screen, and Hollywood seemed ready to carry him smoothly into a long, stable career. Film roles like Father, Like Son, and Listen to Me only reinforced the sense that Cameron was perfectly positioned for lasting mainstream success. Over time, however, his priorities shifted in a way that Hollywood rarely accommodates. Cameron's deepening commitment to Christianity began to reshape not only his personal life, but also the kinds of projects he was willing to accept. Instead of adjusting his beliefs to fit the industry, he chose the opposite path. He spoke openly and unapologetically about his faith and moral convictions, even when they conflicted with Hollywood's dominant culture. Interviews, public appearances, and later social media became extensions of that belief system, slowly widening the distance between Cameron and the industry that had once embraced him. As a result, traditional film and television opportunities faded. Today, Kirk Cameron is far better known for his religious advocacy than for his past acting roles. While he continues to appear in faith-based films and projects aligned with his values, he has largely stepped away from the Hollywood system that made him famous. His story is not one of scandal or collapse, but of deliberate choice, a clear trade between fame and conviction, and a willingness to accept the cost of standing firmly by his beliefs. Kat Dennings. Kat Dennings carved out a space in Hollywood by never trying to fit the mold. With her unmistakable voice, sharp sarcasm, and unconventional screen presence, she stood apart from the typical sitcom star. Her breakout success came with Two Broke Girls, a show that ran for 6 seasons and quietly secured her long-term financial stability through massive syndication deals. While critics were divided, audiences stayed loyal, and Dennings became a constant fixture on television screens for years. At the same time, her role as Darcy Lewis in the Thor films and later the Marvel Universe expanded her visibility far beyond sitcom comedy. She brought humor and grounding realism to a franchise built on gods and spectacle, making her character unexpectedly memorable. Yet as Marvel moved forward, her appearances became less frequent and fans began to notice her gradual disappearance from high-profile projects. Unlike many actors whose careers stall suddenly, Dennings chose a slower shift. Personal milestones, creative fatigue, and a desire for balance reshaped her priorities. Rather than chasing constant exposure, she leaned toward projects that offered creative comfort and emotional safety. She explored smaller television roles and voice work, favoring consistency over spectacle. Dennings never truly vanished. She stepped sideways, redefining success on her own terms. Her journey reflects a quiet truth about fame. Sometimes longevity is not about staying everywhere, but about knowing when to step back before burnout takes over. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen once sat at the very top of television success. At his peak on 2.5 Men, he was reportedly earning an astonishing amount per episode, becoming one of the highest-paid actors in TV history. For years, his sharp comedic timing and unpredictable charm drew massive audiences, turning the show into a ratings powerhouse. To the public, it looked like unstoppable momentum and effortless dominance. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure was building. Decades-long battles with addiction, combined with intense media scrutiny and personal instability, slowly began to erode his career. Public incidents, arrests, and erratic behavior became impossible to separate from his professional life. In 2010, production on 2.5 Men was disrupted as Sheen entered treatment and tensions with creator Chuck Lorre exploded into a very public feud. By 2011, Sheen was fired from the show that had made him untouchable. The fall was swift and unforgiving. Roles dried up, public trust collapsed, and Sheen became a cautionary tale about how quickly fame can turn against those who lose control. Yet in recent years, he has shown signs of reflection and recovery, openly acknowledging his mistakes and committing to sobriety. His story is not just about excess and collapse, but about the long road that follows when the applause stops. Paula Deen. Paula Deen was once a fixture of American television, known for her warm Southern persona and comfort food empire. Her appearances across popular cooking and lifestyle programs turned her into a household name, and for years she embodied a brand built on familiarity, tradition, and mass appeal. The success was broad and lucrative, extending beyond TV into restaurants, books, and endorsements that placed her firmly in the mainstream. That image unraveled quickly. In 2012, legal allegations and testimony brought past language and workplace behavior into the spotlight, triggering a public backlash that reshaped her career overnight. Deen acknowledged using offensive language in the past and apologized, but the damage was already done. Major partners, including the Food Network, cut ties, and the platform that once amplified her voice went silent. Attempts to rehabilitate her image through public apologies and reality television appearances failed to restore the trust she had lost. In the years that followed, Deen retreated from the center of pop culture. Occasional controversies kept her name circulating, but not in the way she once controlled. Her story illustrates how swiftly public favor can vanish and how a career built on relatability can collapse when credibility is questioned. What remained was a cautionary chapter about accountability, consequence, and the unforgiving memory of the spotlight. Sean Connery. Sean Connery's journey to Hollywood greatness began far from glamour. Before fame found him, he worked humble jobs, including polishing coffins, never imagining he would one day redefine what a movie star looked like. When he was cast as the original James Bond, Connery didn't just play a role, he created an icon. His Bond was confident, dangerous, and magnetic, setting a standard that generations of actors would chase but rarely match. Yet Connery refused to be trapped by one identity. As the years passed, he deliberately moved beyond Bond, proving his range in films like The Untouchables, which earned him an Academy Award, and Highlander, where his presence alone elevated the story. Even later, as Indiana Jones's father, he brought warmth, wit, and authority, showing that aging in Hollywood did not have to mean fading away. Then, at a time when many actors cling to relevance, Connery chose silence. In 2003, he stepped away from acting entirely, retreating to a quiet life in the Bahamas. No farewell tour, no final interviews. He simply left satisfied with what he had given and unwilling to compromise his peace for one more role. As the industry grew louder and faster, Connery embraced stillness. His absence felt final because it was intentional. Sean Connery didn't disappear because Hollywood forgot him. He walked away because he had nothing left to prove. T.J. Miller. T.J. Miller once looked like a rising force in Hollywood comedy. With his sharp delivery and unpredictable energy, he became a standout in Silicon Valley as Erlich Bachman and gained massive exposure through the Deadpool franchise. His style was loud, chaotic, and memorable, the kind that made him hard to ignore and easy to cast. For a moment, it seemed like Miller was carving out a long future as a go-to-comic presence in both television and film. That momentum didn't last. Behind the scenes, conflicts began to surface. Miller's relationship with Silicon Valley producers deteriorated, leading to his exit after 4 seasons. Public criticism of the show followed, further straining industry relationships. Matters worsened when he failed to return for later Deadpool installments after reported tensions with co-stars. What once felt like creative volatility slowly became reputational risk. Then came the incidents that changed everything. In 2018, Miller was arrested for making a false bomb threat while intoxicated, an event that shocked both fans and studios. Additional accusations involving inappropriate behavior and mistreatment painted a darker picture, one Hollywood could not easily dismiss. Roles disappeared, opportunities dried up, and Miller faded from the spotlight almost entirely. His story stands as a reminder that talent alone is never enough. In an industry built on collaboration and trust, once those foundations crack, recovery becomes painfully rare. Do you think TJ Miller's career collapsed because of his actions, or could Hollywood have handled it differently? Subscribe to the channel and share your opinion below. Courtney Love. Courtney Love lived at the intersection of fame, chaos, and cultural influence. As the frontwoman of Hole, she helped define the raw, confrontational sound of 1990s alternative rock, while her acting roles added another layer to her public identity. At her peak, Love was everywhere, commanding stages, headlines, and attention with an intensity few could match. Financially, success followed. Between music, film, and inheritance tied to her late husband Kurt Cobain, her net worth was once estimated to be enormous, placing her among the wealthiest figures in rock culture. But the same excess that fueled her image slowly eroded her stability. Love's spending spiraled out of control, compounded by legal battles, tax problems, and years of personal turmoil. She later admitted that tens of millions of dollars had disappeared, lost to poor financial decisions and unchecked chaos. By the late 2000s, the contrast between her reputation and her reality became impossible to ignore. In interviews, Love spoke openly about periods when she struggled to afford basic necessities, revealing a side of fame rarely acknowledged. Financial troubles continued to follow her, including major tax liens and repeated legal disputes. Bankruptcy filings and lawsuits painted a picture of instability that overshadowed her artistic achievements. Attempts to regain control were often interrupted by controversy, keeping her trapped in a cycle of recovery and relapse both financially and personally. Courtney Love's story is not just about losing money. It is about how fame can magnify self-destruction and how even immense wealth offers no protection when discipline disappears. Her journey remains one of the clearest examples of how quickly fortune can collapse when chaos is left unchecked. Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan defined an entire era of romantic cinema. In the 1990s, her presence on screen felt effortless and intimate, turning films like Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail into cultural landmarks. Paired with Tom Hanks, she embodied warmth, vulnerability, and emotional honesty, shaping what audiences came to expect from modern romantic comedies. Yet her talent extended beyond charm. Performances in films such as When a Man Loves a Woman and Courage Under Fire proved she could carry serious, emotionally demanding roles just as convincingly. As tastes shifted and the industry changed, Ryan slowly stepped out of the spotlight. The constant scrutiny that followed her personal life, combined with a desire for creative control, pushed her toward a quieter path. Rather than chase the same roles that once defined her, she explored new directions, including directing and focusing on motherhood. The absence was gradual, not abrupt, but noticeable to fans who had grown up with her films. Though she no longer dominates the box office, Meg Ryan's influence has never disappeared. Her work continues to shape the genre, setting a standard few have matched since. Sometimes stepping away is not a retreat, but a refusal to repeat the past. Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson once embodied excess fame and global attention. At the height of her career, she was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, turning television success and pop culture obsession into an estimated fortune of tens of millions of dollars. Her image symbolized luxury and freedom, and for a time, money seemed endless. Homes in Malibu, designer jewelry, constant travel, and a lifestyle built on indulgence defined her public persona. But the wealth did not last. Years of extravagant spending combined with poor financial oversight slowly drained her resources. A massive renovation project on her Malibu home spiraled out of control, costing millions more than expected. At the same time, tax problems mounted. Records later revealed unpaid income taxes in California, debts to the Canadian government, and legal liens that left her finances under crushing pressure. The contrast was brutal. A woman once seen as untouchable was suddenly fighting to stay afloat. At her lowest point, Pamela Anderson and her sons were living in a trailer park. The fall shocked fans who had grown up seeing her as the definition of glamour. Eventually, help came from unexpected places, including financial intervention from an ex-partner. Slowly, she began rebuilding. The sale of her Malibu home and the success of her memoir and documentary years later helped restore stability, though the scars of the collapse remained. Her story exposes how fame can magnify both success and ruin, and how quickly fortune disappears when no one is guarding it. Do you think Pamela Anderson's comeback proves resilience, or is her story a warning about how fragile celebrity wealth really is? Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Your thoughts in the comments. Your thoughts in the comments. Your thoughts.